Welcome to this June 2023 LifeWave Connect product webinar. We're so excited that you're here with us today, that you've chosen to take this time. We are coming off just another phenomenal month at LifeWave in the US. We're breaking records globally, just amazing things happening. So thank you to everyone for all that you do. We're so excited that you chose to join us today to learn a little bit more about the products. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce and bring on our CEO, founder, and inventor of LifeWave technology, David Schmidt. David, are you there?
Hey, Jeff. Great to see you.
It's good to see you too. How are you?
Doing fantastic. I'm so appreciative to all of the great brand partners we have across the globe. And as you said, we had a phenomenal May. We're breaking records in our sales, and that's always a reflection of how many people that we're helping around the world. So have so much to be thankful and appreciative for.
Absolutely. Well, as we kick off another one of these webinars, just a reminder to everyone, they love asking you questions, and we love taking the questions. And so if you have questions for David as we get going, make sure you put them in the Q&A section so we can address those right after. So David, the topic today, we're talking about a couple of patches. I know it's like choosing your favorite kid, right? But we're talking about a couple of patches that are near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a little bit of brief history about this. The company was launched in 2004 with one product, with Energy Enhancer. And then what happened was, not very long after people started using the product, we started to receive testimonials that there were people getting pain relief. So I refined the product, and that's gave rise to LifeWave. And so there are a lot of similarities and then some subtle differences between Energy Enhancer and LifeWave. And then, of course, Eon came a number of years after that. But one of the things that's been really exciting about our company is that there are people that decide to focus on pain management and help others get out of pain, whether or not that be acute or chronic pain. And we have a number of tools such as LifeWave, Eon, glutathione, carnosine, X39 that can provide mild to complete pain relief. So we're going to be focusing, though, in on LifeWave and Eon today, and keeping it very simple and straightforward.
Well, I know they're two of my favorite patches. I've heard your story on Eon, and since hearing the story of how it came to be, it's just had a special place for me, and of course, love the benefits of that. So are you okay then, David, if we just jump right in?
Well, let's jump right in and get started. Thank you, Jeb.
All right, you got it.
Yeah. So, first, what I thought we would do as a start is talk about why do you experience, or why do people experience pain in the first place? And then what are the different types of therapies and options that are available to manage acute and chronic pain? So the good news is that if you're someone that suffers with chronic pain, there are many, many options for pain relief. And there's also, of course, many different options, natural options on healing injuries, so that you don't have to be suffering with pain. So we're going to be covering just a few of these. The type of things that we're not going to get into today, as an example, would be devices like pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. This has been used quite successfully in real life and of course, in clinical research as a method for relieving pain. Of course, some people use stem cell therapies, such as stem cell injections, for relief of managing pain. So these effects are, these options are pretty broad. But we're going to focus in just on a few of these things today. So let's go ahead and get started. So first thing is, why do we feel pain? And this is actually an interesting question, because if we can describe pain in either Western terms or Eastern terms, but of course, the net outcome is the same. So for example, in Eastern medicine, we might say that pain is a result of a blockage or a disruption in the flow of energy. And in Western medicine, what we might say is that pain is a result of a change in tissue conductivity. It's a signaling problem in the body, but we're really describing the same phenomena, just using different terminology. So this website, I thought, gave a very simple and pretty good definition as to why we feel pain. It's a dysfunction in signaling through the nervous system. And of course, this is more than likely going to be starting in the peripheral nerves. And of course, we could describe either acute or chronic pain this way. So acute is a type of pain that you bump your elbow and now you've got pain, you've got a headache. Chronic pain, of course, is more long-term, such as degeneration of the joints, right? So there's a number of different factors that can influence pain. We won't go through all of these here. You have this website as a reference, but in simple terms, your diet can have an outcome on your quality of life and whether or not you're going to be recovering from chronic pain. And we're going to discuss that today in some detail and what you can do to correct that. You can use exercise therapeutically to help reduce your symptoms and overcome a chronic pain issue. And of course, it's extraordinarily important to get proper rest so you can recover and heal from your injuries and reduce your body's levels of pain. So your lifestyle that you currently have today will have an enormous impact on your quality of life and your levels of pain. Another thing to consider, which is one of the reasons why we're talking about Eon today, is that if you're an individual that lives in a constant state of stress, you could have legitimate different types of stressors in your life. You could be working long hours. You could be dealing with a number of different family problems, any type of personal issues. So there's some legitimate reasons as to why you have stress in your life. The important thing here, though, is regardless of the cause, if you don't have techniques to manage the stress, it's going to be very difficult to overcome your pain because the emotional stress is going to give rise to inflammation. So it's important that we recognize this and find ways to deal with it. Okay, now, there are, of course, obvious disadvantages to experience pain over a long period of time. But what we usually wouldn't stop to think about is what are the long-term consequences of chronic pain. So in other words, in the short term, we all understand the quality of life issues, right? We're going to get more tired, more fatigued. Our energy, of course, is not going to be good. We may have a problem sleeping. We're not going to be able to participate in activities that we would want to. And of course, being in pain is just plain not fun. But when an individual is in pain for a longer period of time, it can create a sense of hopelessness. And this can put someone into a depression. And this will even have an impact on a person's lifespan. So chronic pain is probably one of the most difficult problems that people will deal with in their lifetime. So it's important that we discuss some very simple and safe strategies that you can use so that you don't have to suffer with pain long-term, that it's a shorter-term thing. So the other thing about this is psychological effects. Here is a clinical study that was published in the Journal of Pain. And this is not surprising, but I'll share it anyway, that when a person is in a constant state of pain, it affects their perception of how long they're going to live. In other words, people lose the desire to live, or they say, well, I don't really want to live that long anyway, if this is going to be my quality of life. And this is quite understandable. So even if someone might be able to achieve a longer lifespan, besides the chronic pain or injury, maybe otherwise they're in good health, it does affect their perception of how long they're going to live or how long they want to live. So this is pain is not something that we think of as a transitory event. This can actually have an impact on our total quality of life, our lifespan, and obviously our health span, right? How healthy we're going to stay through the course of our life. So what are some of the things that we can do now to deal with pain? Well, we don't want to mask the pain. Certainly, pharmaceutical drugs, they have their use in pain management. When someone is in a serious accident, if they're going to use painkillers very short term, generally speaking, no harm with that. But pain medication is not something that we should be living with on a day-to-day basis. So let's look at exactly why the pain exists in the first place. There are elevated levels of different inflammatory markers in the body, many that you'll be familiar with, such as C-reactive proteins, inflammatory cytokines, and the inflammation will change the bioelectrical tissue conductivity, and this inhibits the signaling through the nervous system, and the brain perceives this as pain. So given then that pain is a function of the ability of bioelectrical energy to flow through the nervous system and through the tissue, the solution is self-evident. What we want to do is naturally reduce the inflammatory chemicals, and number two, reestablish proper electrical signaling. So there's a few ways of doing that, fortunately. One of the first ones is something as simple as potassium. Now, there's any number of ways that we can get potassium into our diets, especially here in the United States. We tend to have way too much sodium in our diets and not enough potassium. So some classic sources of potassium would be things like bananas, avocados, and different types of seeds are going to be very, very rich in potassium. There's also inexpensive potassium supplements on the market. If you take a powdered potassium, for example, you could easily get 500 milligrams to 1 gram of potassium, which is quite sufficient as a supplement. But because potassium is an electrolyte and it is used as a means to improve signaling through our tissues, then taking a potassium supplement or elevating potassium in the body could then have an effect on lowering acute or chronic pain. So here is a reference on this website about the use of potassium in chronic pain. There's also some clinical studies on it. But basically it says it here is that, not only is potassium going to be great for things like cardiovascular health, but it can help to reduce joint pain and inflammation. Now, I'll tell you a little known thing about potassium is that it helps keep nitric oxide levels elevated. So men, for those of you that are interested in your sexual health, if you want to have longer erections, no pun intended, you'll want to take potassium. It'll keep your nitric oxide levels elevated. You wouldn't use it by itself if you're interested in improving sexual performance. You would want to use other things like Korean red ginseng, L-citrulline, pycnogenol. There's any number of different nutrients that will elevate nitric oxide. But the interesting thing about potassium is that it's synergistic. Now, for those of you that are experiencing chronic pain, another good reason to elevate nitric oxide is that it is a very powerful signaling molecule, and it can reduce pain in addition to improving athletic performance, strength, stamina, and sexual health. So some good ways of elevating nitric oxide. Beets are a very good way for elevating nitric oxide. The amino acid L-citrulline and some of the Korean red ginseng, some of the other things I mentioned. But you take potassium with that, and it can keep the nitric oxide activated in your body longer. So you've got a really simple way, safe way of not only helping to reduce chronic pain or acute pain, but also improve overall health, especially cardiovascular health in those cases. Okay. Now, we can't mention potassium without mentioning magnesium. And of course, magnesium has long been considered a go-to nutrient for relief of pain for some pretty good reason. First of all, different forms of magnesium, like magnesium threonate especially, tend to sedate the nervous system. So in other words, magnesium threonate, because it goes directly into the brain, can produce a very calming effect. And even for those of you that have a difficulty sleeping, this form of magnesium works especially well. If you're trying to manage chronic pain, though, basic magnesium citrate is fine, and magnesium bisglycinate or magnesium glycinate is a highly bioavailable form of magnesium. But here we see that it's been found in clinical studies that intravenous use of magnesium acts as an immediate pain reliever. So this is nice to know that this is an alternative to drugs when someone is experiencing a severe chronic pain. That something as simple and safe as magnesium can be used for pain relief. So I'd certainly recommend, because it takes a long time for magnesium to build in the human body, that you take 200 or 400 milligrams of magnesium daily. Magnesium is used in hundreds of different biochemical processes in the body, well over 300. So you need magnesium for good health anyway. Now, this is going to come as a surprise to many of you. Olive oil. Now, in the United States and probably globally, there is a lot of fake olive oil that's on the market. So it really pays to spend a little bit of extra money to get extra virgin olive oil and make sure that it's authentic. Here in the United States, there are products that are advertised as extra virgin olive oil when in fact they really are not. But the monounsaturated fats in olive oil are a very powerful anti-inflammatory. And here in this study in Nature, it's talking about that it even mimics the effects of a very powerful pain relieving drug. For those of you outside the US, it's called ibuprofen, which you may not have in places like Europe. For those of you in the United States, you certainly know what ibuprofen is. So it's remarkable that something as simple and as natural as olive oil can provide pain relief to that degree. As a side note, I once met a medical doctor that was doing clinical studies on the use of olive oil as a very powerful cancer therapy. The trick of what he did was he took olives and he pressed them with the seeds, in a cold extraction process. And it was actually some of the nutrients in the seed that were killing cancer cells, and the olive oil was acting as a carrier to take those nutrients inside of the cell and directly kill the cancer cells. So that in and of itself is interesting. We've been doing some research on olive oil in our labs here, and we did in fact find a company that is selling organic olive seeds. So just for your information on that. But another thing that's worth mentioning is in a medical doctor that I spoke to about the Mediterranean diet, his conclusion that he came to was that nearly all of the benefits of the Mediterranean diet could be attributed to organic olive oil. So there was nothing particularly special about any of the other foods from the point of view of micronutrients. For the longevity aspect, reduction in cholesterol, reduction in risk of heart disease, all those benefits were coming from extra virgin olive oil. And people that live to be over 100 years old, one thing that you find as a common thread is they consume olive oil on a regular basis. So again, make sure that you're getting the real olive oil, that it's not some of the fake stuff on the market. Now, curcumin. This is an extraordinarily well-known nutrient for managing pain. It's been extremely well studied. And in this clinical study, actually, what was so interesting, what they're talking about in this article, is that people that went on a supplement of in a month, they ended up losing 2% of their body fat. So that was a nice side effect. You really don't get those type of side effects from pharmaceutical drugs. Curcumin could be easily in the top 5 most powerful herbs on the planet because it has such a broad range of effects. But it is known as a natural anti-inflammatory, and certainly for many people, it is a go-to on helping to manage chronic pain. Now, there is a particular extract of curcumin called BCM95. This is what's been used in studies when documenting the therapeutic effects of curcumin. So if you choose to use a curcumin supplement, I'd recommend the BCM95. And then finally, as no surprise, X39. What can't X39 do? Well, of course, it's been found in studies that GHKCU, which is the peptide that X39 elevates, suppresses inflammation. Now, one of the things that we talk about here at LifeWave is longevity and age reversal. So the goal that we have in our labs is to develop new technology that allow people to extend their lifespan and extend their health span. So in other words, we'd like to see technology where people can live to be very, very long and not age in the process. And for those of us that are older, we want to reverse biological aging. And copper peptide can reset about 1/3 of the human genome to a younger, healthier state. And in the process, some of those genes that are reset have to do with the way we manage the inflammatory process. So in other words, here's a way to look at it. Your genes are switches that get turned on and off. And some genes over time that are supposed to be on get turned off, and others that are supposed to be off get turned back on. And copper peptide has the ability to regulate a portion of that process, turning back on genes that were off and vice versa. So in this process, copper peptide can help you manage the inflammatory process. And this actually makes a lot of sense when we think that copper peptide is going to be activating a gene responsible for mobilizing stem cells. And one of the things that kills stem cells off is going to be inflammation, specifically inflammatory cytokines. So if we can manage our levels of inflammation, then our stem cells are going to do a much better job at healing an injury. As a matter of fact, if you're someone that's been suffering in pain for a long period of time, the reason why the stem cells in your body aren't doing its job is because the inflammatory cytokines or oxidative stress is killing off your stem cells. I was speaking with a journalist the other day who invited me to be at a conference, and the conference is about man-made radiation like Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and 5G. And one of the scientists that's going to be attending this conference was speaking to the fact that 5G is causing tremendous damage to stem cells. And as a result, 5G impacts our ability to heal. And so some of the things people want to look at is, well, why does this happen? Which is now well understood. And more importantly, how can we prevent this from happening? And without getting diverted, copper, actually, by taking a copper supplement, increasing levels of copper in the skin, and even there's studies on GHK about this, we can help shield our body from radiation. So that's an interesting line of research based on data that's already been collected. But in any case, short term here, what we're talking about is X39 and copper peptide being a very good solution for helping to manage pain. Okay, so that was a pretty good introduction. Now what we want to do is talk a little bit more here about Wave and Eon. So the point of providing all this information was to say, look, you have to create a foundation. You want to get your diet in order. You want to drink enough water each day. You want to get proper rest. You should be exercising regularly, taking supplements where needed. Create that foundation, and then tools like Wave and Eon are going to work even better for you. So that all said, how do we use these tools, Wave and Eon, to relieve pain? Now, there are many patches we have that will help to reduce pain. Some of you may be using X39 as your first patch, and you found that that relieved your pain. Glutathione, because it's the body's master antioxidant and acts as an anti-inflammatory. There's good ways to use the glutathione patch for pain relief. So if you're using glutathione as a detox and all of a sudden you get pain relief, don't be surprised with that. But what does the data show us about Wave and Eon? The first thing is, for many, many years, one of the tools that we have been using, which has really been invaluable in all the different technologies that we study and develop, is infrared imaging. So this was an early study that we did on Wave, and it's probably obvious, but if we look at the images on the left, we can see areas of inflammation and pain. So we want to look at the areas in the upper back. Then Wave is applied, and you can see on the right that those red areas are dramatically reduced. So in addition to using things like blood tests and what's called a VAS scale questionnaire, and using an electroacuoscope, those are tools that we've used in other studies. Infrared imaging is going to show us a very clear picture. Did the patches reduce the inflammation and pain or not. And here you can see photographic evidence of how that happens. And here is another set of photos from another study that we did on LifeWave, where we were using thermal imaging. You can see in this case around the neck and shoulders, around the lower back, there are severe areas of inflammation and pain, reduced range of motion. LifeWave is applied. And bear in mind, this study was done years ago, before X39. And so there was more limited tools that we had available. So very often, just using LifeWave will get this degree of pain relief. Why does this work, by the way? Well, when you're applying the LifeWave patches around the injury or around the pain and the inflammation, it's going to crank up energy metabolism. It is going to then improve tissue conductivity. So over a period of 20 minutes, we can see this level of reduction in inflammation. Okay. So this was a study that we did. Let's see if I can show you this here. This is one of my favorite studies that we did on LifeWave, because the study was done with Dr. Pierre Volkmann. And Dr. Volkmann is a medical doctor in France, and he's known as being the premier expert in pain management in France. At the time, he was working out of a hospital in France known as General de Santé. It's in Lyon. And that's where we conducted this clinical study. So this was a double-blind, placebo-controlled study. And when we go down to the results, you can see it's absolutely staggering. Now, what we had to do in this study, by the way, I should point out, we have specific protocols on using LifeWave for pain relief. So in other words, you put the tan patch on the pain, you move the white patch around until you get the best levels of pain relief. But they didn't let us do that in this study. They just said, okay, apply the patches to the body and let's see what happens. And even with those restrictions, an hour after applying the patches, 94% of the subjects felt pain relief. And that's extraordinary. Pharmaceutical drugs don't get 94% of people with getting pain relief. So this just goes to show you that not only is LifeWave unbelievably effective, but it does it while being incredibly safe. And we're going to talk in a moment about protocols that you can use with Wave and Eon to help optimize your results. Okay, now this is another study that we did. I'm going to go back up over here. Yeah. Okay, so this study was done by Dr. Homer Nazarian. And at the time, Dr. Nazarian was a biomedical engineer at the University of Texas in El Paso. Since then, Dr. Nazarian has retired. And you can see we conducted this study back in 2013. So you just saw a study that was done at a hospital by a prominent medical doctor in France, which is showing 94% of the people that use LifeWave get pain relief. It begs the question, what's the difference then between LifeWave and a pharmaceutical drug? How would they compare? Well, we did that clinical study. So if we scroll down here to, and you can see that we had thermal imaging that we did in the study. We're going to scroll down to page 21, where we have our conclusion. So as such, LifeWave patches may prove a safe and effective alternative to medications with superior performance for controlling pain. So you can read through this study. It's in the study section of our website. But here we found that, in fact, LifeWave was better than pharmaceutical drugs at relieving pain, and of course, it does it safely. And then finally, wanted to provide, there's 12 studies that we have on our website on LifeWave, so I just picked a few. And I wanted to pick one study on Eon relative to why it relieves pain. So let's look at the cycle here of what happens. Let's say that you bump your knee. And let's say it's where you take a fall and you land on your knee, something severe. What happens is that there's an immediate increase in oxidative stress in the tissue. Now, this sounds like a bad thing, but the oxidative stress is there to help prevent bacterial infection. You get that elevated levels of oxidative stress, and then this signals production of inflammatory chemicals. The inflammatory chemicals are there to tear down damaged tissue and make way for new healthy tissue. So we're getting inflammation. So you can see when it's managed properly, when we're young and healthy, inflammation and oxidative stress, they're a good thing. It's part of the natural healing cycle. But if that inflammation goes on for a prolonged period of time, and it will as we age, because our antioxidant systems have broken down and our mitochondrial function has declined, then the elevated levels of inflammation are a problem. It's going to start to damage healthy tissue. So what we want to do is get the stress on our nervous system under control, elevate antioxidants, and that way we can get our inflammation under control. So here is a published study that we did, a double-blind placebo-controlled study, and we used heart rate variability as a method to evaluate Eon and its effects on the nervous system. We did a similar study in evaluating Eon. That was done by Dr. Tom Budzinski, and we wanted to look at what type of effect Eon produced in the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. Well, in any case, the results of both of these studies were that the Eon patch does, in fact, induce a reduction in stress in the body. So not surprisingly, as a result, we're going to see a decrease in inflammation and a decrease in pain. So this bears the question then, how do we go about using these very powerful tools, LifeWave and Eon, for pain management? And let's say that you're already using X39 and you've gotten some pain relief, but not enough. What would you do? Well, fortunately, the answer can be extremely simple, and this works most of the time, almost all the time. First thing you're going to do is start with a set of LifeWave patches on the bottom of the feet. Now, in acupuncture, this is called kidney 1. So this is just an illustration here to help you find where the patches will go. White on right, tan on left. What you'll find by just using LifeWave there is that this will reduce stress on the nervous system, produce a feeling of calm and relaxation, and will in fact reduce pain. It could take up to 20 minutes. So if you don't get pain relief immediately, give it a little bit of time. You can also combine this with a second set of LifeWave patches. So for example, you could put them up on the shoulders, on the wrists, on the inside of the elbows, along with the set on the bottom of the feet. And that's going to be a nice combination. One set on the lower torso, another set on the upper torso. What do you do with Eon then? Well, that's also extremely simple. If you have X39 on the back of your neck, and then you have LifeWave on the bottom of your feet, you can put Eon below the belly button, or just simply apply Eon to the point of pain. So for example, let's say that you have a pain in your knee. You would apply LifeWave at the bottom of your feet, X39 at the back of the neck, and then find the most severe point of pain on your knee and apply an Eon patch. So very often, the simple things work the best. And again, I want to emphasize that doing really other simple things like getting enough protein in your diet. If you're suffering with knee pain, taking a collagen protein powder, so you've got the building blocks for making cartilage and healing the knee. These are all very, very important things. And what you'll find is that you don't have to live with pain. You can dramatically reduce or even eliminate the pain. So, Jeff, in the past, I've done seminars that have been 8 hours on various protocols and supplements and, what you do to manage pain. And so, this was really a brief overview, but the message here is create a foundation with all things that we've talked about, use tools like X39, LifeWave, and Eon. And it's very simple to get significant reductions in pain.
I love that. Well, Dave, we do have a few questions that have come in on pain. We also actually have quite a few questions that have come in on men's health. And so if you're okay, we'll kind of...
I might have stepped on a landmine there, but go ahead.
So let's actually start with the men's health questions. Just a few here. So one question is, let's see here. Is there any recommendation you have for an enlarged prostate to start out with?
Oh, okay. Well, that's a little bit out of left field. Yeah, as a matter of fact. So this of course is can be a very significant problem for most men as they age. So one thing I would say is that in medical terms, a swelling of the prostate over time is considered to be normal. And so I had discussions with Dr. Norm Shealy about this, who's a very well-known medical doctor and neurosurgeon here in the U.S. And certainly his belief after decades of clinical practice was that the PSA levels are all relative to age. So someone in their 20s or 30s, a normal PSA might be, below 4, but someone 50, 60 years old, a normal PSA could be 4, 5, 6. So it's really what does the trend of the PSA number look like? So, and then the other thing, statistically, of course, most men will die of something else like heart disease before they ever die of prostate cancer. And there's some very good reasons as to why you don't want to do a biopsy on the prostate. It can actually, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not giving medical advice, but if I were someone that was concerned about this, I would not get a biopsy. That wouldn't be my first option on the prostate. So in any case, a medical doctor that I went to in the past here in Florida until he retired, what he was doing was he said 100% of the time he used curcumin, which we brought up earlier, and DMSO. So DMSO is a very well-known pain reliever and anti-inflammatory. I didn't mention it here because DMSO, its downside is that you can take too much and it becomes dangerous. DMSO is a blood thinner. So if it's something that you want to use, I'd recommend you speak with a medical doctor that's a clinical nutritionist or someone that has experience with DMSO, because it can make the blood too thin if not used correctly. But the fact of the matter is that taking curcumin and DMSO orally or preferably by IV, in his experience, decades of experience, consistently reduced PSA and an enlarged prostate. With the patches, and I'm not going to make any claims, but what I'll say is applying the Eon patch to the lower back. So when men have an enlarged prostate, they'll find in their lower back around L3, L4, that it's very sensitive if you press on it. Apply an Eon patch there, and men may find that some of the symptoms that they have are starting to go away. There's many other things that that people could do, but I would say that that would be two of the best things that I've seen: DMSO and curcumin.
Perfect. Okay, and then a few here on pain, of course. One is for localized pain, such as a broken foot, do you still recommend 2 sets of LifeWave, as you kind of had previously mentioned?
So for a broken foot, what I would do is put a white LifeWave patch on the bottom of the foot at kidney 1, and then a tan patch on the pain. And then at another acupuncture point called stomach 40, I would apply an Eon patch. So the way that that's found is, let's say this is the foot, and do this too well. It would be right there at the center of the foot. There's a deep depression there. I would apply an Eon patch there. So you're kind of surrounding the pain. And that can work very, very well for relief of pain on the feet.
So kind of a related question to that, David, is if someone has swollen feet or ankles, darkened skin in the area, those types of things, is there anything that you would recommend for that?
With any of these things, I'm not a medical doctor. People should speak with their doctors first. But you could apply LifeWave on the inside of the ankles at the spleen 6 point. And the way that you find that is you go 4 finger widths up from the top of the ankle bone, and then you press right along the bone there, and that's going to be a point very sensitive, white on right, tan on left, and that'll improve circulation through the ankles. So another thing to be thinking about, which is relevant here, is that if the swelling in the ankles, it could be a sign of diabetes, pre-diabetes, could be a sign of diabetic neuropathy. I'd be looking at natural remedies that are known to improve circulation. So since I can't make any medical claims about the patches, what I would say 2 excellent things to look at would be pomegranate extract, which is known to reduce arterial plaque and improve circulation. You take that over a period of 6 to 9 months. Nattokinase is another one that can do a number of things. As a matter of fact, if someone has had COVID-19 or got the COVID-19 mRNA vaccine, absolutely they should be on nattokinase because it dissolves the spike protein. That's some of the preliminary data coming out. But nattokinase, which is a enzyme extracted from fermented soy, has been used historically to improve cardiovascular health, and it improves circulation. So nattokinase. And then another thing, 2 other things, is that in this case with the swollen ankles, if it's related to diabetes or hypoglycemia, people should be on supplements of alpha lipoic acid and N-acetylcysteine twice a day at least, especially if it's severe, because what N-acetylcysteine and alpha lipoic acid will do, they have an effect on the glutathione levels in the body, and this will remove sugar, bypassing an insulin spike, and as a result, the blood sugar levels come down, and the swelling is going to come down, and you'll reduce your risk of diabetes. Another nice benefit is NAC with lipoic acid will help reduce body fat. So, summer is upon us. So, getting a little bit less body fat's not so bad.
Yeah. All right. And then circling back to another men's health question, we talked about, potassium and in terms of, a men's sexual health. And there is, so there's a question around, low testosterone and what can you do in that regard?
Tons. There are tons of things that can be done relative to elevating testosterone. We have a product, of course, we can't make a claim about it. So I don't know what I would say there, but we do have we have a product that will elevate testosterone. But So let's talk back through this for a second. So first thing, so I'm going to assume this is a man, right? Since we're talking about men's health, but it is relevant for women too, since their hormone profiles change, and there's nothing wrong with women elevating testosterone with age. So first thing, in looking at the literature, there are very few herbal products that have good science behind them when it comes to elevating testosterone. I find consistently that Tongkat Ali has good data around it. 200, 400 milligrams per day seems to be what's recommended for men for elevating testosterone. Taurine is an amino acid, and what's interesting about taurine is that if men are under the age of 40 and they take taurine on a regular basis, it will protect their testicles from oxidative stress. And in their lifetime, they will probably never experience a decline in testosterone levels. So it was something I wish I knew when I was in my 30s. I would have been on a taurine supplement. But taurine is an area that I've been researching because I suspect it has incredible longevity effects. Taurine is good for the nervous system, for the brain, for the heart, supports overall energy production, and good for sexual health. So I would suspect that taurine is going to contribute to testosterone. Of course, when men are carrying too much belly fat, that's going to lead to an increase in estrogen and make it more difficult. So going on resistance training, reducing calories, switching to a diet that's high in protein, moderate in fat, low in carbs is all going to support healthy testosterone. There is, it's a subject that I'm passionate about. We could talk about for an hour relative to the different supplements, but I'd say just to keep it short at the moment, Tongkat Ali is a really good place to start, but there's certainly many ways for men to elevate testosterone naturally.
Very good. Okay, and then just jumping back into pain, there, one of the questions from one of our viewers is, if nerve pain isn't responding to LifeWave like they would like to, what other options are there to help with nerve pain?
Extremely difficult. So, which is, probably not what somebody wants to hear, but even with pharmaceutical drugs, nerve pain is probably one of the most difficult things to deal with. So we have had, as you know, a product on the market for a while called Nirvana, and X39 has been dominating our sales along with other things. So Nirvana kind of slipped to the wayside. But the Nirvana pills that we carry, they will elevate beta endorphins. And beta endorphins are actually 30 times more powerful than morphine. Mm-hmm. And the combination of Nirvana and the Nirvana supplement is excellent at supporting levels of beta endorphins for managing pain. So that's been one way to do it. Other than that, the supplements that I've referred to are good for general pain management. I'd also recommend that people look at hyperbaric oxygen if they're dealing with nerve pain, along with pulsed electromagnetic field therapy. So just as short recommendations, those are something that people have as options.
That's amazing. Well, we're down to about 5 minutes here, so we have time for maybe one or two more questions. One of them, well, actually, I should ask this, or they might come after me, David. So when you're talking about olive oil, we probably had 150 questions on how do you choose a good olive oil and how do you know it's authentic?
Yeah, actually, Jeff, that's a fantastic question. What I've done is I've gone to farms that make organic olive oil. That's what they specialize in. And I'll spend a little bit of extra money to buy the oil directly from the farm. And you definitely pay a premium price for it. But when you have real olive oil, it has a very specific buttery type of feel to it, as a specific aroma. It can even have like a peppery kind of aftertaste. There is, once you've had real olive oil, you can distinguish it from the fake stuff. So I would say go to companies that advertise online, that are farms where they make the extra virgin organic olive oil, and buy direct from them.
Well, that's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I think one last question here as we wrap up. What would be best for chronic headaches that have lasted for years? Do you have any opinions or thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, let's say someone is dealing with chronic headaches. I would definitely be using Wave and Eon in terms of our products. Eon could be placed on the side of the neck. It could be placed on the right temple, or even at this point up over here at night. And that can do a wonderful job at managing headaches. Other than that, there's a whole line of possibilities. I would be using a potassium supplement, a magnesium threonate supplement. I'd be using taurine, 1,000, 2,000, even 3,000 milligrams. Another thing that is also, I think, is surprising is copper. So, usually when you mention copper, people think of copper bracelets, but copper supplementation, what it will do is not necessarily relieve pain, but it will help people it helps reduce the severity of the pain. So copper supplementation is part of a program for getting pain under control.
Very nice. Well, I'm looking to see if we have time for just one more question here, and I think
Sure.
one of them was they talked about, can you layer patches on top of each other? So there's, if you have LifeWave, is there any benefit to layering an Eon on top of that, or should those always be in separate places?
Well, that's something that Dr. Dennis Lobstein came up with, and I believe he refers to it as stacking. So I'll refer to it that way, since he's the first one that I know of that did it. We don't have any clinical studies where we've used the patches that way. Now, I have tremendous respect for Dr. Lobstein. He's a brilliant guy. He's got great experience, and in clinical practice, when he's used the patches that way, he's gotten great results. So my position on it would be, I don't see a reason why you can't do it, but we don't have any clinical studies that show it's better than the way that we recommend them. So I would say if someone wanted to try it and explore, don't see any reason why you couldn't.
All right. Well, as always, David, we're down to the end here. Are there any last words or parting thoughts that you want to share with our community before we close out the webinar?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. Well, first, I want to thank everyone for being here today. And then secondly, too many people live with chronic pain, and they give up hope, and they feel as if that there's nothing that can be done, and they're just, stuck this way. And it's just not true. There is hope, and there's many, many different options. So if someone were struggling with chronic pain, or they had a loved one that had chronic pain, if you try olive oil and it doesn't work, try curcumin, use Wave and Eon. Keep trying different things until you find something that works for your particular situation. But don't give up hope, because you can live a life free of pain.
Love that. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, David, so much for sharing your expertise and your time with us. Until next time, we hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Jeff. Thanks, everybody.